for this 3-day seminar on this topic Bharatiya Vaidika Vangamayam. So we will do a brief recapitulation of what we discussed yesterday, and then we will actually go ahead. So yesterday we first discussed the meaning of the word pramana. Pramana means pramakarana, the instrument for obtaining valid knowledge. Prama means valid knowledge. Karana means the instrument for obtaining valid knowledge. And then we discussed about the need for the study of epistemology. Epistemology is that department of study in which we actually study about the method of obtaining knowledge or the instrument of obtaining knowledge. It is about the science of, it's about the philosophy of knowledge. So what is the need? We discussed about the need of the study of epistemology. Why do we need to study about the instruments for obtaining knowledge? Because before we take to any particular process, any particular practice, we need to have the validity about the particular instrument for obtaining a knowledge, and then so that we can apply ourselves to that particular process. And then we began by discussing about the 4 defects of a human being. Brahma, the tendency to get illusioned. Pramada, because of inattention we commit mistakes, committing mistakes. And Karana Patava, limitations of the senses. And Vipralipsa, the cheating propensity. So we discussed some aspects, some examples of that. And then we began the study of the different pramanas. The first pramana we discussed was Pratyaksha Pramana. Pratyaksha Pramana means when the senses are in contact with the sense objects, and when the mind is in contact with the senses, then the knowledge we obtain is obtained through the Pratyaksha Pramana. So in the Pratyaksha Pramana, what are the limitations of Pratyaksha Pramana? We have discussed that also. And some types of Pratyaksha Pramana. Perception with our external senses, perception with our mind, the internal sense organ. And then we also discussed about Vaidusha Pratyaksha and Avaidusha Pratyaksha. Vaidusha Pratyaksha means divine perception, which is not conditioned by any intermediate medium. Vaidusha Pratyaksha is the knowledge which a person gets by the self-revelation of that object of knowledge. It's not something we obtain by our own efforts, but it is a self-revelation. Vaidusha Pratyaksha is a divine perception. Essentially, is a perception with the spiritual senses which do not have the defects which we discussed previously. And then Avaidusha Pratyaksha we discussed. Then after Pratyaksha Pramana, we discussed about the Anumana Pramana. Anumana Pramana, what is the definition of Anumana Pramana? In Anumana Pramana, Anumana. So Anu means following after. That which follows after a particular knowledge, that is Anumana Pramana. In simple language, it is called as inference. So in Anumana Pramana, we discussed 2 types, Swartha Anumana and Parartha Anumana. How do we get knowledge for our own self using Anumana Pramana? And how do we explain the knowledge for others? That is the Parartha Anumana. In Anumana Pramana, we also discussed some terms vyapti jnana, paksha dharmata, hetu. If you remember, we discussed the example of smoke in the mountain. From that we see a smoke in the mountain, and by that we infer the presence of the fire in the mountain. So in Anumana Pramana, it is essentially based on Pratyaksha Pramana. So because Pratyaksha Pramana has limitations, so Anumana Pramana will also have limitations. So we discussed that. And then we discussed about Shabda Pramana. Shabda Pramana, in that we discussed about Paurushaya Shabda and Apaurushaya Shabda. Shabda Pramana means obtaining knowledge by hearing from somebody. Hearing from someone. So if we hear from a human being, then it is a Paurushaya Shabda Pramana. But if we get knowledge from a non-human source, that is the Apaurushaya Shabda Pramana. So in the case of a Paurushaya Shabda Pramana, because a human being has the 4 defects which we mentioned previously, so therefore Paurushaya Shabda Pramana has its limitations, because we discuss about the defects of a human being. So therefore obtaining knowledge from a Paurushaya Shabda Pramana, it may not be always valid, it will have its own faults. So Apaurushaya Shabda Pramana, obtaining knowledge from a non-human source, from a source who does not have the defects of a human being. So Apaurushaya Shabda Pramana refers to obtaining knowledge from the Vedas. So these points we discussed. And then later we discussed about 7 more types of Pramana. Arsha Pramana, Upamana Pramana, Aitihya, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi, Cheshta. And then we decided that out of the 10 Pramanas, we are going to focus mainly on 3 Pramanas, Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda. Because the reason is, the other 7 Pramanas, they are combinations of these 3. So these are some points we discussed. And later we discussed about between Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda, some comparisons. What are the limitations of Pratyaksha? What is the position of Shabda Pramana in relation to Pratyaksha and Anumana? Pratyaksha Pramana can assist the Shabda Pramana. But Shabda Pramana can override the Pratyaksha Pramana also. Shabda Pramana is independent. Pratyaksha Pramana can be taken like a verdict in a district court. So a judgment in the district court can assist the high court judge to give judgment in the same case. But the high court judgment is independent of the district court judgment. A high court judgment can assist in the analyzing the case in the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court judgment is independent. And more than that, the president's verdict can be independent of even the Supreme Court. The Shabda Pramana is like, we can say, the Supreme Court verdict, or Shabda Pramana is like the president's verdict. Sometimes president gives he has the special power to give some mercy to some people. The Shabda Pramana, other Pramanas can assist the Shabda Pramana, but Shabda Pramana is independent. And then we also discussed different schools. Some schools accept only Pratyaksha Pramana, some schools accept Pratyaksha and Anumana, some schools accept 3 Pramanas, some schools accept 4 Pramanas. So we gave some, discussed something about that. And then later when we talked about Shabda Pramana essentially means 18 departments of knowledge. 18 departments of knowledge. What are the 18 departments of knowledge? Anybody remembers? 4 Vedas. Yeah, Upangas, Vedangas, and Upaveda. 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas, 4 Upangas, and 4 Upavedas. So, Shabda Pramana refers to this 18 Vidyasthanams, 18 seeds of knowledge. So, because we have used many terms actually, therefore I am just repeating some of the terms. I suggest you also go through the whichever notes I sent. So 18 Vidyasthanams, 4 Veda, 6 Vedangas, 4 Upangas. Upangas means auxiliary limbs, and 4 Upavedas. So we gave some references for this 18 Vidyasthanams also. So now we will continue today. So we see one of the people may have different objections about why to accept the Shabda Pramana, why to accept the Vedas. So in any field, in our own practical life also, we accept different authorities by putting faith. Even to buy some gadget, we do a survey in the internet, and then we consider the opinion of a person whom we have not seen, whom we have never met in our life. What is his opinion about using that particular gadget? So I mean, like, we consider somebody as an authority. So we see great scholars like Patanjali, Gautama, Kannada, Kapila, Shabaraswami, Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya. They all accepted the Vedas as the authority, as Apaurushaya and eternal. So all these authorities are known for their detachment, wisdom, and selflessness and austerity. That means, like, there is no, you can't sometimes some people in a great position of power, when they accept something as an authority, there could be some hidden agenda, hidden motivation behind it. But these people, they led a life of austerity and detachment and selflessness. When such people accept something as an authority, then we naturally have to give more weightage to it. And another important point, because really the PPT should have very less text, but some slides will have more text, but I'll explain some of the points. So in regards to studying the Shabda Pramana, one of the important point is we need to approach a guru actually. So the approaching a guru is an absolutely essential requirement for studying the Shastra. So we study the Shastra with the help of a person guru, and then a person who is supposed to who is teaching, he can act, he should, when he is teaching, he is supposed to substantiate everything by quoting from the Shastra. In that way, there is a mutual check and balance. We cannot, sometimes when people study, especially in the modern world, we have the self-help books. We study on our own. They can be helpful for a person to come to a certain level. That also has its role. But sometimes when we study a book, because our own mind is colored with the 3 modes, we may interpret the book according to our own conception. So according to in the Vedic Shastras, it is mentioned that Tad Vijnanartham Sa Gurum Eva Abhigachet. One must approach a guru in order to get transcendental knowledge. So when we see modern scholars, they come up with a different interpretation. They have different theories about the Vedic textbooks. They absolutely flout this requirement. They never actually study the Vedas from, many of them don't study the Vedas under the guru actually. So when they don't satisfy the requirement mentioned in the Vedas, so we cannot expect to get valid knowledge from such kind of scholars. So, and like for example, there is a famous, sometimes the people say that when you study from a person guru, then the knowledge which you study will be colored with the subjectivity of that person. Like he will have a certain bias, he will have a certain interpretation. So it will be colored by the subjectivity of that particular person. So instead of studying from a person, one must study objectively without depending on a person. Like that, people give an argument. Scientists study everything objectively. But a person from the scientific field, he says, sciences are human activities. The assumption that the sciences are uniquely objective not only distorts the public perception of the scientists, but it affects the scientists' perception of themselves. The illusion of objectivity makes scientists prone to deception and self-deception. It works against the noble ideal of seeking the truth. So people think that scientists are very objective. They are not affected by somebody else's subjectivity. But oftentimes, because the scientists are working for a particular project which is funded by a certain organization, industry, so their findings are also their findings are affected by the their findings. The research conclusions are affected by the financial fundings. Who are the people who are supporting the research? So therefore, since time immemorial, we see people have studied the Vedas from a person guru. So therefore, one has to follow that tradition. So for example, when we study the different teachers, acharyas in the Vedic tradition, when we study their character and motive, they didn't have a ulterior motive and they didn't have a dubious character. On the other hand, when we study from the many of the, of course we cannot generalize, when we study from many modern scholars or modern academicians, they don't have the same selfless or austere lifestyle and they have a different motivation. So yes, in any case, a seriously interested person can always take up the Vedic process himself and personally verify the Vedic conclusions. So when we follow the Vedic process, it's not a blind faith. When we accept a particular person and study it, it's not a blind faith. You can ultimately verify the Vedic conclusion. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam susukam kartum avyayam. One can directly perceive it. It definitely requires some effort, and in comparison to that, it may be easier to offer some glib speculations denying the Vedic authority than to discipline oneself and follow their instructions. And some of the uniqueness of the Vedas is that if we see that there are various departments of knowledge in this world, but can a person imagine that in a particular field of science or an art, we could reach an apex in knowledge and produce one standard book accepted by all, making all other books in that field obsolete? Is it conceivable that no one would make any further changes or additions in such a book? So, for example, Bhagavad Gita, like we don't find different versions of the Bhagavad Gita, changes in the shlokas, or any Purusha Sukta or different Vedic literatures. The same words, same swaras are used since thousands of years. On the other hand, in various other departments of knowledge, we come up with various versions of the books. In every department of knowledge, whether medicine or science. And so this is something about unique about the Vedas. And there is one standard book accepted by all. So in the pre-modern era, if somebody would quote from the Vedas, it would be immediately accepted. There would be a saying that, oh, you are saying like this, is it a Veda Vakya? If something is quoted from the Shastra, it would be immediately accepted. But in the modern era, people started having faith in the science. So science was considered as an authority. So when somebody would quote some scientist or scientific finding, then that was considered as an authority. And later in the postmodern era, if somebody would present one's own experience, and that person's experience was considered as an authority. Neither the scripture nor the science, but experience was considered as an authority. But when we talk about experience being considered as an authority, or the science being considered as an authority, it is a little shaky foundation, because different people may give different experiences. And scientific research, scientific findings keep changing. And there was something called as a Hubble's constant in the astronomical field. And they were changing the value of that constant every now and then. And then later they made it as Hubble's variable. They changed the term only. So therefore, when we take science as an authority or the experience as an authority, then it is not very reliable. So, and there are many examples. For example, Vedas are authoritative even in the empirical field. Cow dung and cow urine are mentioned. Generally, it's mentioned that when a person would touch the stool of a living entity, one is supposed to cleanse oneself. But the Shastra say that cow dung and cow urine are considered pure. But this was also proved scientifically that how they have antiseptic properties. There are many sections on astronomy, medicine, yoga, music, drama, dance, many things are. So we will see one of the uniqueness of the Vedas is that Vedas provide guidelines for living a healthy life, long life, happy life, and a spiritual life. So Vedas offer a holistic program. So in comparison with the Sanatana Dharma, when we talk about other religions, some of the other religions, they are only about the other world, they only speak about the otherworldly things. They don't have anything to offer about the this worldly thing. In other religions, if we inquire, or do they have some scripture for actually maintaining a good health, for living a long life? Do they have some scripture for music? But Vedas offer a holistic program. That is why when we talked about the Upaveda, there is Gandharva Veda is there, Ayurveda is there, Dhanur Veda is there. We'll discuss that also. So Vedas are authoritative even in many in empirical field. And great thinkers and powerful logicians, they have not simply brushed aside the Vedas. It would be very simplistic to brush aside the Vedas as man-made. And there are many in the Ayurveda also. There are herbal formulae prescribed in the Ayurveda, not tested in the mice and rabbits. Generally, in the modern world, the different medicines are tested with the different animals. So in Ayurveda, many medicines are there, but which are not tested with certain animals, but they are revealed to the sages like Charaka, Bharadwaja, etc. In that way, there are many examples for this. And then, when we talk about the eternality of the Vedas, so oftentimes when we read many Indologists, they have given different dates for the Vedas. Vedas are 2000 years old. Some said 4000 years. Some said 6000 years. Different Indologists have given different dates. But according to the Vedic Shastras, Vedas are eternal. Yesterday I mentioned that Yasya Nisvashitam Vedaha. So Vedas are the breath of the Supreme Lord. Because the Supreme Brahman is eternal, his breathing is also eternal. But then one may get a doubt. So in order to prove that Vedas are eternal, you are quoting the Vedas only. Is there not a dosha called as Swashraya dosha? Swashraya dosha means mutual dependence. Suppose somebody says that I am the most intelligent person in this particular city. And then another person asks that, who says like that? What is the proof for that? And the person says that, because I am saying that. So if he himself is saying, I am the most intelligent person, the proof is I am saying that, then will other people give value to that? So there is a committee or certain people who are intelligent. If they say that, oh, this person is having a great IQ after examining, then you will give value to that. But in the case of the Vedas being eternal, the proof we are citing is from the Vedas. So one may say that, is there not a defect called a swashraya? This is swashraya is something like a circular reasoning. Circular reasoning means in order to prove something, you are giving an evidence. That evidence is also dependent on what you want to prove. Suppose you say that, so where is Radha Gopinath temple? Somebody is asking, you are saying that Radha Gopinath temple is opposite to Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. And then he asks, where is Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan? So Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan is opposite to Radha Gopinath temple. So there is a circular reasoning. So similarly, that Vedas are eternal, but for that you are quoting the Vedas only. Is there not a circular, is not a defect here? So the point is, Vedas are an exception to this fallacy. Vedas establish their own authority is not a defect, rather it is logical and sensible. It simply affirms their absolute transcendental nature. Like suppose, in order to prove that Vedas are eternal, if I were to quote some other book citing as an evidence, so this book says that Vedas are eternal. Then naturally the next question would be, what is the validity of that particular book? How do we know that that book is authoritative? And then I say that, oh, that book is authoritative because there is another book which says that this book is authoritative. Then naturally the next question will be, what is the authority of the third book? And in this way you will go on for what is the authority of that? You will go on for eternity actually. So therefore, but in the case of the Vedas, we are not depending on some other book in order to prove the authority of the Vedas. So an inquisitive person would be obliged to discard the Vedas and begin all over again analyzing the new source authenticity. And before long, this new source would need confirmation from yet another source. And this could go on ad infinitum. But the absence of such a superior source for confirmation about the authority of the Vedas, it shows that the authority of the Vedas are apaurushaya shabda pramana, and this is the final. Logically, therefore, no other pramana can substantiate the Vedas. So when we say the apaurushaya shabda pramana, it is independent. It is independent. It does not depend on anything else. It means to prove the Vedic authority, we don't need to depend on some other book. Like in this world, because, for example, because human beings are operating, there has to be a mutual dependence. Supreme Court, okay, they may have a collegium system, but there is a discussion. Some parliament should also have a say in selecting the judges, because they see that even in the collegian system there is a human errors. They select people from their own family. So therefore, there should be some element of some third party from parliament. They should also have a say in that. Because in this world there is always possibility of human errors. Therefore, we need a dependence on other. But in the case of the Apaurusheya Shabda Pramana, because it is coming from a non-human source, in order to prove that, you don't need to depend on some book written by a human being. So the absence of so in the case of the Vedas are an exception to this particular fallacy, exception to the Swashraya dosha. It is free from the circular reasoning, the defect of circular reasoning. So Vedas are regarded as the mother. So when a person wants to know who the father is, one cannot find by Pratyaksha Pramana, Anumana Pramana. One has to depend only on the words of the mother. Similarly, in order to understand the reality which is beyond our sensory perception, we have to rely only on the Vedas. Just like a person relies only on the words of the mother, not on Pratyaksha or Anumana. So similarly, to understand the reality beyond the senses, one has to depend on the Vedas. And as I mentioned, so the opinion of these modern scholars that Vedas are of mundane origin are unreliable and untenable. It is like, because it is like they are like when a person takes a medicine without following the guidelines of a doctor, one cannot expect the right cure of that medicine. So when a scholar is studying a book without following the guidelines of that particular book of approaching the guru, then one cannot come to the right conclusion. So they reject the necessity of a genuine guru for understanding the Vedas, although they accept this principle for other subjects. For many others, all the other subjects, they actually accept this principle. So one cannot be selective. So submission to guru is an absolute requirement. Tad vijnanartham sagurum eva abhigachet. Kata Upanishad says that naisha tarkena matirapaneya proktan yeneva sujnanaya preshta. The knowledge is not available by mere logic, but one has to study from a teacher. Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmanah. That to that person who has unflinching faith in the Guru and in the Supreme Lord, to that person all the conclusions of the Shastras are revealed. So there are many statements like that. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavritaha. I am covered by my illusory potency. I do not reveal myself to anybody. So this statement is relevant both when the Bhagavan appears in this world via the divine descent and when he reveals himself through the scripture. It's not only applicable for understanding the Supreme Lord personally, it is also applicable for understanding the Shastra. Because yesterday I mentioned, there is no difference between the Vachya and the Vachaka. In the material realm, there is difference between the Vachya and the Vachaka. Vachya is the, like we are saying that Ramesh is the Vachya, And the Vachaka is the person denoted by that word Ramesh. There is a difference between the word Ramesh and the person Ramesh. But in the transcendental realm, there is no difference between the Vachya and the Vachaka. So therefore, what Krishna says, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavritah, I am covered by my illusory potency. The same statement applies also to the Vachya, that is the to the Vedas, through which we know the supreme absolute truth. So the method begins with a culture of knowledge from a genuine disciplic succession. So therefore, there is an absence of any conclusive proof of the Vedas being authored by a mortal being. Some sections I didn't cover, but there is no conclusive proof for the Vedas being authored by a mortal human being. And by the logic known as the Parishesha Nyaya, the law of the remainder, the authority of the great acharyas and the saints coming in the authentic disciplic succession, and ultimately the testimony of the Vedas themselves, lead us to the conclusion that the Vedas exist eternally and are an infallible source of knowledge. So now, going ahead, we are going to discuss the four meaning of the word Veda. So in Sanskrit, all the words, they originate from a dhatu. Dhatu means here the verb stem, the root form of a verb. So one of the with sattayam. With sattayam is a dhatu. I couldn't type it in Devanagari. I just typed it in this one. Sattaya means existence. So when we with every dhatu, when we add a particular suffix, then we get a particular word. For example, we have a word drive. When you add the suffix er, then it denotes a person who performs that act of driving. So similarly, with is a verb. And then when we add different pratyaya, suffixes, then we get the word Veda. So with sattayam, with means existence. So therefore, Veda means that which exists in the past, present, and in the future. So depending on the particular suffix we add, the final word will have will give a different sense of the meaning. Just like when you add a suffix er, it refers to the person who is performing the act of driving, driver. So similarly in Sanskrit, when depending on there are many different suffixes are there. Based on that, the sense of the word changes, sense of that verb changes. So Veda refers to that which exists in the past, present, and in the future. So this is one meaning. And the second meaning comes from the another dhatu with jnane. Sometimes the same dhatu will have different meanings. With jnane. So jnane means knowledge. Pratyakshena anumityava yastupayona buddhyate yenam vidanti vedena tasmat vedasya vedata. So that which is incomprehensible through pratyaksha or anumana is understood only by the Vedas. Therefore, Vedas are called Vedas. Tasmat vedasya vedata. So the second meaning of the Vedas, it comes from the with jnane. That means Vedas provide knowledge which is incomprehensible through pratyaksha and anumana. And the third meaning of the Vedas is, it comes from with vicharane. Vicharane means to analyze. So Vedas analyze the nature of material existence and also the nature of the supreme Brahman. Brahman means what we can say is the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Bhagavan, personality of Godhead. The Vedas analyze about the material realm and also about the spiritual realm. So therefore, Vedas means that which analyzes the material realm as well as the spiritual realm. That is the third meaning of the word Veda. And the fourth meaning comes from the dhatu with labhe. So labhe means to gain something. So what can we gain from the Vedas? We can gain from the Vedas iha sukha and para sukha. Prosperity while living in this world, and also liberation after death. Prosperity while living in this world, and we can also, Vedas also provide a better method or a process for reaching a better facility or better comfort in the next life. And also Vedas provide an opportunity for even liberation from this world. So therefore, because the Vedas come from the root word with labhe. In that way, based on the particular dhatu, we have different meanings of the word Veda. And Vedas are unlimited. There is a famous statement, Ananto vai Vedaha. Ananto vai Vedaha. Once Bharadwaja Rishi, he was actually studying the Vedas. But 100 years, he had a lifespan of 100 years. And 100 years were about to come to an end. And then he started praying to Indra because he couldn't complete the study of the Vedas. And he started praying to Indra, and Indra appeared, and he asked Indra, can you please extend my lifetime by another 100 years so that I can complete the study of the Vedas? So Indra said, Tatastu. And then again he started studying for another 100 years. At the end of 200 years, still he had not come to an end. Again he started performing austerities to Indra, and then Indra came, again he asked for the same benediction, and Indra gave another 100 years. And this happened from 4 or 5 times. And then finally Indra said, once he said that what you have studied in the past few hundred years, 400 years, 500 years, you see in front of you there is a mountain. So what you have studied is something like which you can hold some mud in your hand. But Vedic knowledge is something is like a mountain. So in your so many hundreds of years, you have studied only a small handful of Vedic knowledge. But the Vedas are unlimited. So Ananto vai Vedaha. And yesterday I also mentioned this point, that Vedas are apaurushaya. It comes from a non-human source. Sometimes people say that in different Vedic mantras, different sections of the Upanishads, different places, there is a name of the Rishi mentioned. Does that not mean that it is written by a particular Rishi? That means it is a Paurushaya. So those names of the Rishis are not mantra karta, but they are mantra drashta. By performing austerities, they received those mantras and they revealed the mantras. They did not actually, they did not write those mantras. They did not author those parts of the Vedas. So they are simply mantra drashta. So really, Rishis are like if you see sometimes nowadays, like somebody produces the movie, but then the distributors of the movie are completely different. Rishis are like the distributors of or the people who release the movie, the distributors of the movie. They didn't produce that. They didn't actually write the Vedic mantra. They simply received it and then they propagated. So again, some quotes about like I mentioned about, there are different Indologists. They have given different findings about the dates of the Vedas. Some say 6,000 years old, some say 5,000 years old. But there is one famous Indologist. He says that the chronology of the history of Indian literature is shrouded in truly terrifying darkness. Winter Knits somewhat pointedly notes that it would be pleasant and convenient especially when preparing a handbook on Vedic literature, to divide the literature into 3 or 4 periods and assign dates and categories. But every attempt of such a kind is bound to fail in the present state of knowledge. And the use of hypothetical dates would only be a delusion which would do more harm than the good. This is a honest admission of an Indologist. He says that it is even better not to assign dates to the oldest period of Indian literary history. All dates given in the Indian literary history are pins set up to be bowled down again. For the most part, this is still the case today. So, whatever dates they have, different people have given, many other people have refuted. So, therefore, he is honestly admitting that let us make it as a Hubble's variable. Let us not give any dates only. So, well, we discussed this point previously. And another point is about, as I mentioned, that Vedas are co-eternal with the Bhagavan. Vedas are not even authored by Bhagavan. The Bhagavan has shared the eternality with the Vedas. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha Vedesha sarvair ahameva vedyo Vedanta krit veda videva chaham. So here Krishna says that I am Vedanta krit. He is not saying that I am Veda krit. Vedanta krit means I am the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. In my incarnation of Veda Vyasa, I compiled the Vedanta Sutra. But he is not mentioning that I am the Veda krit. He is mentioning I am the Veda with, not Veda krit. So therefore, Krishna is the knower of the Vedas. Therefore, he could compile the essence of the Vedas as a Vedanta Sutra. But he did not create the Vedas. He is the knower of the Vedas. Because the Bhagavan is eternal, his breath is also eternal. The Vedas are eternally existing. But the breath is always subordinate to the person. So Vedas are subordinate to the person Bhagavan. Vedas are not independent of the Bhagavan. So, and there are divisions of the Vedas. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is said that Vyadadad Yajna Santatyai Vedamekam Chaturvidam. So Vyasadev, he foresaw the people of Kali Yuga in the future. How they will have a short memory, short lifespan. They will have many doshas. So therefore he decided to write down the Vedas, compile the Vedas and divide the Vedas. Just like a mother understanding the capacity of a small child, the mother actually cuts the dosa or chapati into small pieces so that the child can eat. So similarly Vyasadev did that. And further, so the 4 Vedas are Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. And what are the different branches in each Veda? According to Kurma Puran, it is mentioned, Eka Vimshati Bedena Rigvedam Kritavan Pura. Shakanam tu Shatenaiva Yajurvedam Atakarot. Samavedam Sahasrena Shakanam Prabhibedasa Atharvanam Atovedam Bibeda Navakenatu. So Rigveda has 21 branches, Yajurveda has 100 branches, Samaveda has 1000 branches, Atharvaveda has 9 branches. So totally there are 1130 branches are there. So there are different branches in each Veda. And there are 4 parts of the Vedas. So Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, there are 4 Vedas are there. And within each Veda, you will have 4 parts. Some will be Samhita part, some will be Brahmana part. Brahmana is not the, we are referring to the person Brahmana according to the Varnashram. It is the Brahmana is a section of the Vedas. And then Aranyaka and Upanishads. These are the 4 parts of the Vedas. And so totally if we see, there are 1130 samhitas, equal number of brahmanas, equal number of aranyakas and upanishads. So totally there are 4520 titles within the four Vedas. But among them, how many are available now? Only a 6% is available. 11 samhitas, 18 brahmanas, 7 aranyakas and 220 upanishads are available. So this constitutes less than 6% of the original Vedas. This is less than 6% of the original Vedas. And so now we'll discuss briefly about Rig Veda, the 4 types of Vedas and the 4 divisions of the Vedas, and what are the Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishads. So in the Bhagavad Gita, so we'll see why I'm quoting this verse is that in the Vedas you will find description of many sacrifices, yajnas. So then what is the need for performing yajnas? In the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Sahayajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam yeshaboshtishta kamaduk. So in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and the Devatas, along with the sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, perform these sacrifices, by this you will get prosperity in this world and also liberation in the next world. You can live happily in this life and also liberation in the next life. Yajnasishta shanashanto muchyante sarva kilbishai bunjate tu tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. So when a person, every person for living in this world, we need food grains, we need to eat something to sustain. But the Bhagavad Gita says that when we eat the remnants of food grains which are offered as a sacrifice, then by that one will be freed from all the sins, sarva kilbishaihi. On the other hand, when a person cooks food without offering as a sacrifice to the Devatas, to the Supreme Lord, when a person cooks food grain only for oneself, and by that one becomes a sinner, one becomes contaminated with the sin. So therefore, there is a need of performing a yajna. So with this introduction, we'll see. So Rig Veda, so these 4 Vedas, they actually describe different aspects of the yajna. So Rig means stotra or a hymn. So it contains hymns invoking the Devatas. Rig Veda starts and ends with Suktas glorifying Agni. Sukta means a set of hymns is called as a Sukta. And there are also stories including a narration of Vamana Deva. In Rig Veda, Bhagavan is glorified in the Purusha Sukta, which appears in the 90th chapter of the 10th Mandala. So Purusha Sukta, we see often Purusha Sukta is recited in many of the ceremonies. Why Purusha Sukta is something special? Because Purusha Sukta is there in all the 4 Vedas. Is the original hymn from which all the Vedas emanate. It is the standard prayer which the Devatas offer to please Lord Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayah. So the Purusha Sukta is there in all the 4 Vedas. And something about Yajur Veda, the word Yaju comes from the root word Yaj. Yaj Dhatu. Yaj means to worship. So Yajur Veda, it contains the worship connected with the sacrifices. It contains practical application of the mantras from Rig Veda for performing yajnas. It describes in prose the actual conduct of the Vedic rites, how to create an altar for a yajna, how to perform the yajna. Yajurveda is divided into Shukla Yajurveda and Krishna Yajurveda. In North India, many of them follow the Shukla Yajurveda. In South India, people follow the Krishna Yajurveda. And something about Samaveda. So Sama refers to that which brings equipoise or tranquility to the mind. So by the hymns of the Rig Veda, the Devatas are invoked, the deities are invoked. And by following the injunctions of the Yajurveda, the sacrificial altar is prepared and the ritual is properly conducted. And then by chanting the mantras, by chanting the songs of the Samaveda, by singing the songs of the Samaveda, the deities are glorified and they are pleased. So Krishna says that Vedanam Samavedosmi. So Rig Veda is in the form of a Padya form. Padya form means it is in the form of a poem. It is bound by the rules of Chanda. Chanda is one of the Vedanga. Chanda, there are rules which say that, okay, certain number of aksharas should be there in every line. Such rules are there. So the Rig Veda is in the form of a poem. It is bound by the poetic rules. Yajurveda is in the form of a prose format. Samaveda is in the form of a song. Samaveda we sing actually. And among the Samavedas, Krishna says that Brihat Sama Tata Samnam. I am the Brihat Sama among the different Samas. The Samavedas have the special potency to please the deities invoked. And so Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda is a combination of prose and poetry. Combination of Gadya and Padya. Gadya means prose and Padya means poetry, which is bound by the poetic rules. So Atharva Veda, Atharvan means a priest. It is mainly in prose, but it also has the poetic elements. I didn't mention that. It's a combination of prose and poetry. It contains mantras and rituals for fulfillment of material desires, like to bring welfare in a family, to remove the effects of sinful activity, to cure the snake bite, etc. There are mantras to guard oneself from the misfortunes, and incantations which bring destruction of one's enemies. And even the magical rites have their origin in Atharva Veda. And there are, when a person is performing a sacrifice, there will be 4 main priests who correspond to the 4 Vedas. Just like suppose in any big event, there are different people who take charge of the different parts of the event. Somebody is the MC of the event. Somebody may be seeing the seating arrangement. Somebody may be looking after the prasadam serving arrangement, like that. So similarly, in a Vedic sacrifice, there is a Advaryu priest. He is associated with the Yajurveda, and his duties include sanctifying the sacrificial paraphernalia, measuring the shape and size of the sacrificial arena, like that. And Udgata priest, he studies the Samaveda and he chants those hymns to please the Devatas during the sacrifice. Hota priest decorates the altar, invokes the Devatas, he chants the Rig Veda. And Brahma priest is expert in the Atharva Veda. He is a supervisor and he coordinates the entire sacrificial ceremony. And as I mentioned, there are 4 different parts of each Veda. Samhita. Samhita means what? Systematized and collected together. It is the mantra portion of the Vedas. It is also considered as a main part of the Vedas. And in the traditional Vedic system, the brahmacharis in the first stage, they learn the mantras, the samhitas. It contains mantras dedicated to the devatas to be chanted while performing a yajna. Brahmana portion is like a guidebook for performing yajna karmas. The grahasthas, they understand they learn from the Brahmana portion the different yajna karmas and they perform the yajnas. And so it is that portion of the Vedas which states the rules for employment of the hymns of the various sacrifices and gives detailed explanation of their origin, sometimes with lengthy illustration in the form of the legends and the stories. It is distinct from the mantra portion of the Vedas. More things are more informative. So Samhita portion is meant for the brahmacharis, brahmanas are meant for the grahasthas, and the aranyakas are meant for the vanaprasthas. So the aranyaka portion, it gives deeper meaning, deeper philosophical meaning of the Samhita and the Brahmana portion. It gives the esoteric hidden meaning. It throws light on the metaphorical passages of the Vedas. Some of the cryptic, more difficult passages of the Vedas, it gives an understanding of them. So in the Aranyakas, so in the Samhita portion, the emphasis is given to chanting the mantras exactly. And in the Brahmana portion, you have to understand the methodology properly to perform the Vedic rites. But in Aranyaka portion, the emphasis is given to the inner purpose and significance of the sacrifice. The more philosophical, deeper meaning. Generally, when people also, when they grow old, they look for more meaning in life. The philosophical acumen also becomes more strong, especially after 40s, and Sattva Guna somewhat sets in. They also look for more meaning in life. So in Aranyaka portion, the emphasis is given for the inner purpose and significance of the sacrifice. For example, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is considered both the Aranyaka and the Upanishad, it talks about the purpose of the Ashwamedha Yaga. It opens with a philosophical explanation of an Ashwamedha Yaga. And then there is a Upanishads. Upanishads are considered to be the headlines of the Vedas. It is the head of the Vedas. Upanishads are called as the Rahasya Vidya. It contains the most confidential knowledge of the Vedas. Upanishads point to the supreme absolute truth, and it gives the process for attaining liberation from this world. Upanishads are synonymous with the word Vedanta, the conclusion of the Vedas. What is the meaning of the word Upanishad? Upanishidati. That means those scriptures which help the practitioner achieve liberation and bring the person close to the supreme absolute truth they are called as Upanishad. Or another meaning of Upanishad is that Upanishad. So that knowledge which loosens bondage with certainty and destroys the ignorance concerning the Jiva Swarupa and brings one close to the absolute truth is called Upanishad. So, switch on the power. So Upanishad is also called as Brahma Vidya and Rahasya Vidya because it gives knowledge about the Brahman. It is called Brahma Vidya, and it gives confidential knowledge. Therefore, it is called as Rahasya Vidya. It is imparted by the Guru to the disciple who realizes it in his heart. And Samhita can be compared to the tree, Brahmana to the flowers in the tree. Aranyakas can be compared to the unripe stage of the fruit, and Upanishads are like the ripened fruit. So, just like Upanishads are like the ripened fruit. So, the Vedas can also be classified in another way. Vedas can also be classified in another way as Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. It will come. So Vedas can also be classified as Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So Karma Kanda is also called as the Purva Kanda, the beginning portion of the Vedas. Karma Kanda is also called as Purva Mimamsa. Jnana Kanda is considered to be the later portion of the Vedas. It's also called as a Uttara Kanda. Or it is called as a Brahma Kanda because it talks about the Brahman. It is also synonymous with Uttara Mimamsa. So Karma Kanda, the Samhita and the Brahmana portions, they come under the Karma Kanda. So these two portions talk about the method of worship. But the Jnana Kanda consists of the Aranyaka and Upanishads. And the Jnana Kanda teaches about the object of the worship, the nature of the object of worship, about the Brahman. So in this way, Vedas can be classified in this type of category also. So Jnana Kanda portion will be very small compared to the Karma Kanda portion. Karma Kanda portion is a huge, but Jnana Kanda portion is small. Just because it is small, we cannot say that, oh, it is less important. In a tree, leaves will be many more, but the flowers and fruits will be small in number. But the flowers and fruits are more important than the leaves actually, although leaves are many more. So Karma Kanda portion is like the leaves of a tree. Jnana Kanda is like the flowers and fruits of the tree. And if we see the Lord Yajna or Lord Vishnu, Yajnartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Lord Yajna or Lord Vishnu is like a bridge. The scriptures compare Lord Yajna to a bridge. A bridge takes a person from one side to another side. So Lord Yajna takes a living entity from the material ocean to the spiritual ocean, from the ocean of material desire to the place of spiritual desire. So in this bridge, there are various portions of the bridge. The Shatapatha Brahmana, which is the part of a Karma Kanda. So it takes a living entity from this world to the heaven. And Mundaka Upanishad, which is a portion of a Jnana Kanda, it takes a living entity, it extends the bridge further to the liberation, to the Atma Sakshatkara, to realizing one's Swarupa. Shvetasvatara Upanishad follows the bridge further and it takes the living entity to the Sakshatkara about the Bhagavan. So in this way, by inviting the karmis and jnanis to associate with the Setu form, the Lord becomes the sacrifices that attract their natures. And the Vedas can also be classified in another way. It is called as a Prasthana Traya. Prasthana means the gateways, the three gateways of the three great highways. Prasthana Traya. So there are three prasthanas: Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana, Nyaya Prasthana. Shruti Prasthana consists of the original Vedas, Brahmanas, Samhitas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. So we cannot change the words at all. We have to hear and repeat it exactly. Smriti Prasthana consists of the Puranas and Itihasas. They explain the same meaning of the Vedas using different stories. So, Smriti Prasthana, Shruti Prasthana can be compared to the law book, and Smriti Prasthana can be compared to the law journal. Law books will contain only the exact statements of the laws. Law journals explain the same laws by using different case studies, 1974 in Allahabad High Court between Ramesh Srivastav and Kapil Trivedi, this case was filed, and then these were the proceedings. This judgment was given under sections IPC 270, like that. There's a different details will be given. The same laws are explained by using different case studies. So Smriti Prasthana is like comprised of the Puranas, Itihasas. And then there is Nyaya Prasthana. So the Vyasadev, in order to harmonize the statements of the Upanishads, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra that is called as a Nyaya Prasthana. You understand the essence of the Vedas by using logic, by using tarka. You understand the message of the Vedas. So that is a Nyaya Prasthana. These are also originally in the Sanatan Dharma, if a sampradaya has to be recognized as a bona fide sampradaya, then the acharya in the sampradaya, he has to write a commentary on some book from Shruti Prasthana, something from Smriti Prasthana, something from Nyaya Prasthana. He has to write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. He has to write a commentary on something with the Smriti Prasthana, something from Shruti Prasthana. If, for example, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote a commentary on Isopanishad, which is Shruti Prasthana. He wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of Mahabharata, so it is a part of Smriti Prasthana. And he wrote a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra, therefore it can be considered as a Nyaya Prasthana. And there is reference in the... So Srila Prabhupada says that Vedanta Sutra is known as the Nyaya Prasthana, the Upanishads are known as the Shruti Prasthana, the Gita, Mahabharata are known as the Smriti Prasthana. All scientific knowledge of transcendence must be supported by Shruti, Smriti and the sound logical basis. So that is why we see even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, whenever he... Many places he actually quotes the authorities. Brahma Sutra Padaichaiva Hetu Madbir Vinishchitaihi Sankhye Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarva Karmanam. According to the Vedanta Sutra, there are 5 factors of action. According to the knowers of the truth, body is temporary, soul is eternal. Oftentimes he quotes. And so now we have discussed so far about the 4 Vedas, something briefly. So now we are going to discuss the role of the Vedangas. So again, you remember the 18 Vidyasthanams, 18 departments of knowledge. So you have discussed the first 4 Vedas. So next is the Vedangas. So there are 6 Vedangas and they can be classified into 3 categories. And they have 3 purposes. So to preserve the words in the Vedas, the first thing is like we have to preserve the words. Like now we have different methodologies. We digitize the books. So many methodologies are there. But previously the Vedas were not even available in the book format. Then how did they preserve the Vedas? So to preserve the words of the Vedas, there were 2 Vedangas were required. That is Shiksha and Chandas. And then after preserving the words of the Vedas, next is you have to understand the meaning of the Vedas. So for the 2 Vedangas, Vyakarana and Nirukta. Vyakarana is related to grammar, Nirukta is a dictionary. And then after understanding the meaning, then you have to perform the different Vedic yajnas activities. In order to do the anushtana of those Vedic yajnas, to practice or to protect the performance of the Vedic deeds, there are 2 Vedangas, Jyotisha and Kalpa. So one is the Swarupa Raksha, that is done by Shiksha and Chanda. Artha Raksha is done by Vyakarana and Nirukta. And Anushtana Raksha is done by Kalpa and Jyotisha. Chandapadau tu Vedasya Hastau Kalpota Patyate Jyotishamayanam Chakshur Niruktam Shrotra Muchyate. Shiksha granam tu vedasya mukham vyakaranam smritam tasmad sangamadityaiva brahmaloke mahiyate. So Chanda Shastra is considered to be the leg of the Vedas. Shiksha is considered to be the nose of the Vedas. And Vyakarana is the mukha of the Vedas, the mouth of the Vedas. Nirukta is the ear of the Vedas. And the Jyotisha is the eye of the Vedas. And Kalpa is the hand of the Vedas. And it is said that Tasmat Sangamadityaiva Brahmaloke Mahiyate. So one who studies the Vedas along with the Vedangas is glorified in the Brahmaloka. So oftentimes this word Sango, that term will again comes. Another important point about the importance of studying the Vedangas. Just like the different parts of the body, they help in, they serve the whole body. Similarly, the Vedangas help in the study of the Vedas. Vedangas, they serve the Veda Purusha. So there is a very famous statement which you'll hear in the many traditional schools. Brahmanena nishkaranena vedodhyeyaha nyeyascha. So in the current, if you see the educational field, whenever a person wants to choose a particular branch or a field, the first question is that what is the job prospect in this particular branch? So that is actually an important question for people actually. So what is the future in this? But so when we come from that background, so often when we want to learn scriptures also, then we get the same question with the same conditioning comes. Will I be able to earn through this? If I study the Vedas, can I earn something? But the Vedic education, there is a complete different paradigm shift, a completely different paradigm from the modern education, because it is said that Brahmanena nishkaranena vedodhyeyaha nyayascha. So in the modern education, whether when a person goes for learning or for teaching, there is a motivation involved. So what kind of job I'll get, how much I'll be able to earn. In teaching also, so there is a motivation for get something out of it. It could be say fame or money or anything. But in the Vedic education, a Brahmana should study the Vedas and Vedangas without any motivation, nishkaranena, without even asking the reason why to learn, because it is their dharma. They have to do the Veda Raksha, Vedanga Raksha. And Sangopanga Adhyayanam. Sanga Upanga Adhyayanam. So that means what? Sanga Upanga Adhyayanam. It means studying the Vedas along with the different corollaries, along with the Vedangas. That is like a thorough study, complete study. Even nowadays, sometimes suppose a politician gives a speech by quoting different statistics and different quotations from in the past 30-40 years. Some politician is refuting something. He is saying, 35 years back, Congress made this decision. 25 years back, in this particular year, under this particular role, they made this decision. Like that, a person gives some 15-20 quotations. And then when he makes a particular point, then we say that, this is a Sango Upango speech. That means like thorough speech. Like he has studied the opponent's viewpoint thoroughly, and then he is giving the quotations left and right, what the other government or the other leader did, and then he is giving a thorough presentation. So similarly, Sango Upanga Adhyayana means studying the Vedas along with the different Vedangas, along with the study of the different Vedangas. So So we will see briefly about the different Vedangas. The first Vedanga is Shiksha. So Shiksha is the nose of the Veda Purusha. The life year of the Vedic mantras lie in the right pronunciation of the Vedic mantras. So in the Vedic mantras, a great emphasis is given to the right pronunciation. We will see some importance of how the pronunciation is emphasized. So there is a Akshara Shuddha and the Swara Shuddha. That means the Akshara Shuddha, the Akshara has to be pronounced properly. Hrasva, Dirgha has to be pronounced properly. And Swara Shuddha. Swara Shuddha means the the swaras and the vowels are pronounced in three swaras: Udata, Anudata and Swarita. When you use the upper part of the mouth to pronounce the vowels, then it is called as Udata. Uchair Udataha. Nichair Anudataha. When you use the lower part of the mouth to pronounce a certain vowel, then it is called as Anudata. And when you use both the upper and lower part, then it is called as a Swarita. So there has to be a purity in the Swara and there has to be a purity in the Akshara. So Shiksha is about the phonetics. So pronunciation is more important in the Vedas than in other languages, because if we improperly pronounce, then the result will be completely different when you chant differently. Sorry for the interruption. I had to do one small thing actually. So there was a person called as Twashta. He was performing a sacrifice in order to get a son who can kill Indra. But because there was a small change in the pronunciation, instead of getting a son who can kill Indra, he got a son who will be killed by Indra. So therefore, pronunciation is given a great importance in the Vedas, because in order to preserve the Vedic mantras. So when Lord Ram first met Hanumanji, after hearing Hanumanji's speech, he glorified Hanumanji for different aspects of his speech. One of the aspects he glorified is about Hanumanji's pronunciation. So there are 6 aspects of Shiksha. One is about the Varna, about the letters. Another is about the Swara. I mentioned Udata, Anudata, Swarita. Another is about the Matra. It can be Hrasva or Dirgha or Ardha Matra or Pluta, more than 2 matras. Based on the sound of the rooster, the different matras are described. And then about the Balam, that means the effort required to pronounce a letter. Based on that, the aksharas also classified actually. How much strength should be given to pronounce a particular varna? There are 2 kinds of effort called as Abhyantara Prayatna and Bakhya Prayatna. So you may not remember all the terms, but at least even if you don't remember all the terms, but at least by going through this, we can at least get an understanding of depth of the detail in which all these shastras are there. That is what I want to give an idea, not to bombard with the different terms. And within Abhyantara Prayatna, there are 5 types are there. Within Bakhya Prayatna, there are 11 types are there. And then another aspect of Shiksha is about the Sama. That means when 2 letters combine, they undergo certain changes. It is called as Sandhi. And then when Visarga, sometimes a Visarga changes into different types depending on where the Visarga comes. Ramaha, the Ha is the Visarga. That Visarga can change into different type depending on the next letter. So like that, these aspects are talked about in the Shiksha. So for example, a guideline for pronunciation is given. Vyagri yata haret putran damshrabhyam nacha pidayet Bhita patana bhedabhyam tadvad varnan prayojayet. When a mother tiger is carrying its baby in the mouth, if it puts more effort than required, it will harm that baby cub. And if it puts less effort, the baby may fall down. So it has to put just appropriate effort, neither more nor less. So similarly, one should actually pronounce the letters, neither putting more effort nor putting less effort. This is the general guideline for pronunciation. Evam varna prayoktavya navyakta nacha pidita samyak varna prayogena brahmaloke mahiyate. A person who pronounce the sometimes when a person is pronouncing the letters, one may swallow certain letters, and sometimes a person may put extra effort in certain letters. But when a person pronounces without swallowing some letters, without putting additional effort in the letters, and in this way samyak varna prayogena, by proper pronunciation of the letters, such a person will be glorified even in Brahmaloka. Brahmaloke mahiyate. 6 kinds of mistakes in pronunciation. Geeti, sometimes a person pronounces in the form of a song, which is not supposed to be sung, but it pronounces like a song. Or Shigri, a person pronounces fast, and in that way one may miss certain letters. Shirakkampi, unnecessarily one may actually shake one's head while pronunciation. Or Likita Patakaha. Likita Pataka means when a person is reading by seeing a book, that is considered to be a adama in pronunciation. Because Vedic school means you have to say from your mind, from your you have, like, it is, there is a statement that Nirmula Kalakshepa Anyaya Vedanta. If a person is giving a upanyasa or a discourse, he should have a complete hold on the moola. Like, without seeing any book or notes, one should be able to one should be able to quote the shlokas immediately at the tip of a tongue. That is like the ideal or the first class this thing. So that is why usually people would study the Vedic studies right from the young age, where the capacity for memorization is very strong. So Likita Pataka, seeing, reading by seeing the written matter, that is considered to be a lower category of actually pronunciation. Anarthagno, or pronouncing something without knowing the meaning. And Alpa Kantascha, having a mild tone. One is not, other people are not able to hear properly. Shadete Pataka Damaha. 6 good qualities in pronunciation. Madhuryam Akshara Vyakti Padachedastu Suswaraha Dhairyam Layasamartam Cha Shadete Pataka Guna. Madhuryam, a person pronounces sweetly. Akshara Vyaktim, Vyakti, distinctly pronouncing every Akshara. Padacheda, where you should give a break between the two padas, one gives a proper break at that place. Suswaraha, by pronouncing along with the swara, udata, anudata swara, swarita. Dhairyam, pronouncing confidently. Laya samartam cha. Laya samartam means sometimes a person may give an unnecessary break. There may be a delay more than required. So without such delay, they are the good qualities in pronunciation. So for example, this is a diagram. You see the different parts in our mouth. So different varnas emanate from different actually parts in our mouth. So nasika, nasal letters we say. There is Murda, Talu, Voshtau, Dantaha, Jihva Moolam, Kantaha. Jihva Moolam is the root of the tongue. Kantaha is the throat. So different actually varnas emanate from different parts. Like for example, akuha visarjaniyanam kantaha. A, the first letter A. Ku refers to the ka varga. Ka, kha, gha, gha, nga. And ha. And visarja, visarga varga, visarga. So these letters, they emanate from the kanta. So like that, there are, I'm just giving one sample, like that, Ichu Yashanam, Talu, and different letters from Talu Bhaga, from Murda Bhaga. So these are mentioned in the Shiksha. And I mentioned that there are two kinds of efforts required in pronouncing the different letters. One is called as Abhyantara Prayatna. So Abhyantara Prayatna, if you see the diagram, so there are two portions are there. So the effort put from the lower portion of the tongue, that effort is called as a Bhakya Prayatna. And the effort which is put from the portion above the throat, that is called as a Abhyantara Prayatna. That diagram is there. So, and within that Abhyantara Prayatna, Bhakya Prayatna, there are different subcategories are there. So Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. So Udatta is the upper part of the sthana, lower part of the sthana. Upper followed by the lower part is the Swarita. And there are markings for that. So all these are mentioned in the Shiksha Shastra, Vedanga. And the next Vedanga is the Chanda. So Chanda is related to the Vedic meters. Something like, we can remember the railway track. There is meter gauge, broad gauge, narrow gauge. So similarly, different Vedic, that especially the Padya, different Vedic poetry, they have different meters. It is considered to be the leg of the Veda Purusha. So Padyam means what? Chandobadda Padam Padyam. That which is bound by the rules of Chanda, that is called as a Padyam. Gadyam means prose. And Champu means a combination of Gadya and Padya. Gopala Champu, Ananda Vrindavana Champu, Champu Ramayana. There you will find shlokas also. There will also have prose literatures. In the Chandas, there is a concept of Lagu Akshara and Guru Akshara. So Lagu Akshara, there is a symbol mentioned. So all the Hraswa Swaras, vowels, all the Hraswa Swaras are Lagu Akshara. A, I, U, Ru. And then the Vyanjanas joined with the Hraswa Swara, they are also called as Lagu Akshara. And then there is Guru Akshara. Guru Akshara, all the Dirgha Swaras are Guru Akshara. And Hraswa Swaras followed by a Anuswara and Visarga, they become Guru Akshara. A street dog will not have any respect. But the same street dog goes in a military parade, then there is a greater respect for that. So Hraswa Swara followed by a Anuswara and Visarga, it becomes a Guru Akshara. Is a Guru Akshara. Kaha is a Guru Akshara. And Hraswa Swara followed by a Sanyoga. Samyoga means what? Two Vyanjanas without any gap. Krishnaha. The Krishna, there's Rikara is a Swara, Hraswa Swara. But after the Rikara, there is Sh and Na. There is no gap between that. There is a Sanyoga is there. So ordinarily the R is a Hraswa. It should be actually Lagu Akshara. But this Rikara is followed by a Sanyoga Akshara. So therefore here it becomes a Guru Akshara. So Hraswa Swara followed by a Sanyoga, it becomes a Guru Akshara. So in Bhiksha, so the Bakarottara Ikara, that is a Hraswa I Varna. So ordinarily it should be a Hraswa. It should be a lagu. But that this ikara is, after ikara there is ksha is there, that is a sanyoga varna. So therefore the ikara becomes the guru akshara. So like that these concepts are mentioned in the, because based on lagu and guru, the different meters will be described in the chandas. For example, there are two types of chanda, vritta chanda and jati. Vrittam and jati. So vrittam refers to akshara chanda, jati is referring to matra chanda. So in akshara chanda, there are three subcategories. So in a shloka, there are 4 lines are there. So each line is called as a pada. Suppose in each pada, same number of aksharas are there, it is called as a samavrittani. Same number of aksharas are there. And suppose in first 2 padas, some number of aksharas are there. The third and fourth pada, different number of aksharas are there. Then it is called as a ardha samavrittani. And suppose in each line there are different number of letters are there, then it is called as a vishama vrittani. I forgot to enlarge it. So in that way, in vrittam there are 3 types are there. So for example, pratipadam shodasha aksharani. In each pada there are 16 aksharas are there, then that chanda is called as pancha chamaram. Pratipadam there is a 17 aksharas, it is called as Shikarini, Mandakranta, like the different types are there. So like that, some details are there. Pratipadam, 8 aksharas are there, it is a Anushtup Jati. So most of the shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, they come under the Anushtup Chanda. And within Anushtup Chanda, there are 256 categories. So out of that one, the most famous category among the Anushtup Chanda, out of the 250s category, that is called as a shloka. So actually shloka refers to the famous category within the 256 categories of the Anushtup Chanda. But in the Vyavahara, we use the shloka for almost for every poetry actually. But shloka has a specific meaning actually. The particular definition of a shloka is that Panchamam lagu sarvatra saptamam dvichaturtayoho guru shashtam cha padanam chaturnam syad anushtubi. That means, so there are 4 padas are there. Panchamam lagu sarvatra. In each pada, if the 5th letter has to be a lagu varna. Saptamam dvichaturtayoho. The 2nd pada and in the 4th pada, the 7th letter has to be lagu. 7th letter has to be lagu. And guru shashtam cha padanam. In all the 4 padas, the 6th letter should be guru. Chaturnam syad anushtubi. Chaturnam syad anushtubi. So such a structure is called as a shloka. This like for example, the red marking is there. This marking is lagu and horizontal line is the guru. So if you see, there are 4 padas are there. Of course, it is written in 2 lines. But the 5th letter is lagu. 5th letter in every pada is actually lagu. And the 2nd and the 4th pada, the 7th letter is the guru. And in all the 4 padas, the 6th letter is guru. So this is the definition of a shloka. So for example, Valmiki Rishi in the Ramayana, he saw the 2 croucher birds, and then when the 2 croucher birds were in union, it was actually one hunter actually killed that male croucher bird. At that time, Valmiki lamented, and his lamentation came out in the form of a shloka. His shoka turned into a shloka. Manishat pratishtam tvam agama shashwati sama yat krauncha mitunadekam avadi kama mohitam. So there's a particular pattern is there. His shloka turned into a shloka. So just I'm just giving a just brief tip of this one. There are in this way Chandas is about the Vedic meters. I don't expect you'll remember every details of that, but just to give an idea that this is about the Vedic meters based on the based on a particular pattern. If the different types of chandas are there, based on the number of letters in each pada, there are different types of chandas. And then within that also, suppose fifth letter can be Guru, something letter will be Lagu, like that. Different patterns are there, like that. Each chanda is defined. So we have covered Shiksha and Chanda. So maybe I'll quickly cover the Vyakarana part. The third Vedanga is the Vyakarana. So Vyakarana is the mouth of the Veda Purusha. Vyakarana is considered to be the most important among the 6 Vedangas. Pradhanam cha Shatsvangeshu Vyakaranam. Among all the Vedangas, this is considered to be the most important. It also takes lot of time compared to the other Vedangas to study the Vyakarana. And there are different types of Vyakaranas are there. The famous Vyakarana is the Paniniya Vyakarana. But before Paniniya, there is Aindra Vyakarana, Kashakritsa, Kaumara, Shakatayana, Saraswata, Chapishala. Then after Panini also there are Jainendriya Vyakaran, Bhoja Vyakarana, different Vyakarana systems are there. So the prominent is the Paniniya Vyakarana. So there is a famous statement, Kanadam Paniniyam cha Sarvashastropa. So there are 3 Shastras which are helpful for studying all the Shastras. Kanadam, Nyaya Shastra, Panini's Vyakarana Shastra, and the Mimamsa Shastra. These are considered to be like the Samanya Shastra. They are helpful to study all the Shastras. Kanada refers to the Nyaya Shastra because it is written by Kannada, and Panini is Vyakarana Shastra. Cha refers to the Mimamsa Shastra. So Ashtadhyayi Jaganmata Amarakosho Jagatpita. So Ashtadhyayi is considered to be the mother, and Amarakosha is the Sanskrit dictionary that is considered to be like the father. So traditionally in the Vedic Gurukul, people would memorize the Ashtadhyayi and the Amarakosha because they become the foundation. The Vyakarana is like the gateway to enter all the Shastras. It's like it gives a door to enter all the Shastras. So Panini is the father of modern linguistics. Panini's theory of morphological analysis were more advanced than any equivalent Western theory before the 20th century. So Panini gives the Vyakarana rules for the Laukika Sanskrita Shabdas and also for the Vedic Sanskrita Shabdas. And he also takes into account that sometimes certain parts of India, certain letters or certain words are pronounced in a particular swara, and certain parts of India they are pronounced in a different swara. So in order to accommodate both, he gives different rules. So so there is a dialectic differences. For example, we have the word Ramaha, simple word Ramaha. So every word starts from a particular dhatu, verbal stem. So it starts from a dhatu called as Ram. You add a pratyaya called as Gai, a suffix Gai. And then it undergoes certain grammatical rules, and then we get the form Rama. And Rama is the noun stem, and then with that you add a pratyaya called as Su. And then again you follow certain grammatical rules, and then you get the final form Ramaha. So Ramaha is the ready-made word which we use, but behind that there are different processes involved in forming that word. Like, for example, we may get a ready-made, say, gulab jamun in the plate actually. But if you remember, what are the different processes involved in making that gulab jamun? There will be so many things involved actually. So that is what the process involved in making the gulab jamun. That's about the grammatical rules actually. And so the Panini Vyakarana, it starts with the Maheshwara Sutras. There are sutras which emanated from the Damaru of Lord Shiva. So this is from a divine origin. The origin of Panini Vyakarana is from Lord Shiva. So there are Maheshwara Sutras which are there in the I, One, Rul, Rik, the sutras are there. And Panini Vyakarana, there are 3 Munis are there, 3 Rishis. Panini Rishi wrote the sutras, and then there is a Katyayana Rishi wrote what is called as a Vartikas. He studied the sutras thoroughly, and then whatever is left over in the sutras, some additional rules, he gave in the Vartikas. And then there is a Patanjali Rishi, he gave the Mahabhashya. He gave a detailed commentary on the sutras and the Vartikas. So it is called as a 3 Muni Vyakaranam. So Vakyakaram Vararuchim Bhashyakaram Patanjalim Paninim Sutrakaram cha Pranatosmi Munitrayam. We offer obeisances to the 3 Munis who are the Sutrakara, Vartikakara and Bhashyakara. So yeah, this is the last slide. So for example, what is the definition of a sutra? Alpaksharam asandigdam saravad vishvato mukam astobam anavadyam cha sutram sutravido viduhu. A sutra should have minimal number of aksharas, alpaksharam. There's a famous statement that Ardhamatra lagavena putrotsavam manyante. Suppose if a sutrakara is able to compose a sutra by reducing 1 akshara or by reducing 1 matra, he experiences a happiness as if he has given birth to a child. When a child is born, it's a huge effort involved. So many months of the labor pain and so many effort. So when the child is born, how the family members become so happy. So similarly, when a sutrakara is able to reduce 1 matra in a sutra, he experiences the happiness of giving birth to a child. So sutra should have minimal number of letters, alpaksharam, asandigdam, but it should be free from any doubts. There should not be any ambiguity. Saravat, it should give the essence. And vishvato mukam, I mean it should have universal applicability. Astobam, that means there should not be useless varnas should not be there. Sometimes there can be some extra varnas which are not required may be there. There should not be any redundant letters should be there. And anavadyam, without any mistake. If these characteristics are there, that is called as a sutra. And there are different types of sutras, Vyakarana sutras, Vedanta sutras, Mimamsa sutras, Yoga sutras. So whenever you write a sutra should have these characteristics. So therefore, a person has to have a complete hold on the subject actually. It is not easy to write a sutra. One should have a complete hold on the subject. To write minimal number of letters, give the essence without any mistake, without any redundance. So there is also a system of Vyakarana called as Harinamamrita Vyakarana. It is written by Jiva Goswami. The speciality of this Vyakarana is that he has given the grammatical rules only using the holy names of Krishna. So when you are studying this Vyakarana, it is equivalent to chanting the holy names. It is equivalent to performing Harinam Sankirtan. So the Hrasva is called by the word Vamana. Dirga is called by the word Trivikrama, another holy name of Krishna. Vowels, Swaras, they are called as Sarveshwaras because Swaras are independent. Vyanjanas are dependent on the Swaras. So they are called as Vishnu Janas. The devotees of Vishnu are dependent on the Sarveshwara. In that way, he uses different terms, all using the holy names of Krishna. So in this way, there are We have discussed today about the four Vedas. We discussed about in the Vedangas we have covered three parts: Shiksha, Vyakarana, and Chanda. Before the Vedas, we also discussed some common misunderstanding about the Vedas, how to study the Vedas, the importance of a guru. We discussed those concepts. And tomorrow we'll discuss about the three more Vedangas and then four Upangas and then four Upavedas. Some things we'll cover very quickly. And then we'll also cover about the importance of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and also about the unified message of the Vedas. So today I wanted to cover more, but we could cover less only. The time is so running out. If anybody has some questions, we'll take for 5 minutes. Then we'll.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Lots and lots of questions were pouring when you were telling us.
You can ask questions related to what is there in the subject actually. First, whatever we covered today,
Yeah.
something which is not understandable or something needs some elaboration, something needs some repetition. So you can cover those questions first. We'll take some questions and then other topics we'll take later. Something related to what we covered today.
Yeah. So related to the topic, so there is this. Can I come?
No, you can tell from there. No,
Okay. So there is this part which I recite, Dattatreya Stotram. अनुष्ठूप छंद श्रीदत्त परमात्मा देवता श्रीदत्त पितीर्थ जपे विनियोग. So there is this word comes anushtupa chanda before we recite the main stotra. So ओमस्य श्री दत्तात्रेय स्तोत्र महामंत्र से भगवान नारद ऋषि अनुष्ठूप छंद श्रीदत्त परमात्मा देवता श्रीदत्त पितीर्थ जपे विनियोग. So here Anushtupa Chanda means when we recite the stotra before, it tells about the grammar.
It tells about the particular stotras which are there, which chanda it is written. It's mentioning that.
It's mentioned.
Oftentimes in the explanation of the shloka, the chanda, which chanda is used, it will be mentioned. Anushtup chanda will have 8 aksharas in each pada. So it is just different authors compose shlokas in different meters. So it could be Shardula Vikridita. Bhagavatam first shloka is composed in Shardula Vikridita. There are 19 aksharas in each line. And then after, I think, 11 aksharas, there is a small gap. And then 7 aksharas, like that. So each shloka, there's a meter will be mentioned.
So in the same stotra, there comes Rasva Dirgha Krushasthula Nama Gotra Vivarjita. So this Rasva and Dirgha is also coming in this.
Rasva is Eka Matra, Dirgha is Dvimatra. A is Rasva, A, that is Dirgha. E is Rasva, E, Dirgha.
And Krushasthula? Krushasthula.
So Krishna means basically lean and Stula means fat actually. Maybe it could be referring to Lagu and Guru. We have to see exactly. Lagu Guru I mentioned. Okay. Anybody else has any question? Related to what we covered today? Something which you not understood, anything repeat? We need to repeat anything.
Krishna. Prabhuji, you said only 6% has been now left. So the balance 94% has been lost forever?
No, Vedas are they become unmanifest.
Unmanifest.
They can never be destroyed. Vedas are eternal.
Right.
Uh,
But at
But
present,
in the four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, out of those 5,000, so many titles, only 6% of the titles are available. So that is why we will also discuss tomorrow that if only the book itself is only 6% are available, then how can we understand the essential message of the Vedas? And then there comes the importance of the Puranas, Itihasas, etc. Any other question? So we'll stop here. I'll be here only during Prasadam. If you want to ask any questions, I'll continue. You have something?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Huh.
Can you just elaborate more on that Uttar and Purva Mimangas?
Uttara and?
Purva,
Yeah, I mentioned Karma Kanda is also called as Uttara Kanda. It is also called as Uttara Mimamsa. Mimamsa term we'll also understand tomorrow. And Jnana Kanda is also called as Uttara Kanda. Purva Kanda is the beginning portion. Uttara Kanda is the later portion. Jnana Kanda is also called as a Uttara Kanda or Uttara Mimamsa. There's other terms for it. They refer to the same thing. Karma Kanda mainly consists of the Brahmanas and Samhitas. Uttara Kanda consists of the Aranyakas and Upanishads. So Karma Kanda deals with the method of performing yajnas, method of worship. But Jnana Kanda is related with what is the nature of that object of worship. It's a more philosophical section.
So Prabhuji, this six Vedangas, can we say these are the kind of a language assimilation to understand the Vedas? It's more of a language and
Not only with language. Shiksha is definitely with language. Vyakarana is with language. Nirukta is also with language. Chandas also with language. But Jyotisha and Kalpa is not with the language. Because Swarupa Raksha and Artha Raksha preserve the Swarupa Raksha is definitely with the language. Artha Raksha is also related to the language. But within the language also different aspects of the language. Meter is one aspect of the language, and the pronunciation of the letters, we are understanding the meaning. But Jyotisha and Kalpa is not with respect to language, but it's about other aspects. We'll see that tomorrow.
so the other four parts, the language piece, it's mainly Sanskrit. I mean, if you understand,
Because it's all in Sanskrit only. Vedas are in Sanskrit.
no, my point is if someone knows Sanskrit, I mean, these four Vedangas talks about Sanskrit per se, or there is more than Sanskrit in these?
It's only in Sanskrit only.
It's in Sanskrit, but it's about explaining the Sanskrit language. Is it like the explanation of the Sanskrit language?
Yeah, it's about what are the right formation of the words, what are the meanings of the words in the Sanskrit language. The word should be used. So many rules are there actually.
Thank you.
So I think we'll stop here. Then, if there are any questions, I am here only during Prasadam. We'll take. So thank you very much for your. You also sitting 2 hours actually. I was just only speaking continuously, but thank you for your patient hearing, and I'm looking forward to meet you tomorrow also. So you go through I'll send whatever I have covered. Go through whatever I have covered. If there are any doubts, you can ask something tomorrow also. Tomorrow, I'll try to. There is also a lot of material to cover, but I'll try to cover more fast and.